Cleveland, Ohio. November 2015. An 18-year-old high school senior sits across from his guidance counselor, frustration etched across his face. He's trying to apply to college, chasing the American dream, just like millions of other teenagers. But there's a problem. A big problem. His social security number doesn't work. The counselor clicks through database after database, her brow furrowing deeper with each failed search. And then, she finds it. The boy's social security number appears in a database she never expected to check. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The room goes silent. The teenager's entire life, every memory, every birthday, every moment he thought he knew, is about to shatter like glass. For 13 years, his mother searched. For 13 years, she woke up wondering if her 5-year-old son was alive or dead. For 13 years, investigators pursued hundreds of leads that led nowhere. And now, in the most unexpected way possible, in a guidance counselor's office 1,000 miles from where he vanished, the impossible has happened. His name is Julian Hernandez. And this is his story. But here's the question that will haunt you: what happens when you discover that your entire life has been a lie? When the parent you love most in the world is the person who stole you from another parent who never stopped searching? When home becomes a crime scene, and the truth becomes a prison? Welcome to the Found Files, where the missing are never truly gone, and the found are never the same again. If you believe every disappearance hides a second story, hit subscribe right now. And before we begin, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Because this story will travel farther than you think. Now, let's go back to where it all began. August 2002. Vestavia Hills, Alabama. August 28, 2002. Summer is drawing to a close in Vestavia Hills, Alabama, a peaceful, affluent suburb nestled in the hills just outside Birmingham. It's the kind of place where neighbors know each other, where kids still ride bikes down tree-lined streets, where parents feel safe. But safety is an illusion that's about to be shattered. The morning air is thick and humid, typical for an Alabama August. The kind of heat that makes your shirt stick to your back before you've even finished your morning coffee. Inside a modest home in this quiet neighborhood, a young mother is getting ready for what she believes will be an ordinary day. Her name is not widely publicized. She has asked for privacy throughout this ordeal, but her story is one of every parent's worst nightmare. Her 5-year-old son, Julian Hernandez, is a bright-eyed kindergartner with his whole life ahead of him. He's at that magical age where everything is still a wonder and possibility. He loves playing outside, loves his toys, loves his mother with the pure, uncomplicated devotion that only young children can give. Julian's parents are no longer together. Their relationship has ended, but they're supposed to be co-parenting. Julian's father, Bobby Hernandez, still has visitation rights. Still gets to see his son. Still gets to be a dad. But Bobby Hernandez wants more than visitation. He wants everything. To understand what happens next, we need to understand what came before. Bobby Hernandez and Julian's mother had been in a romantic relationship. But like many relationships, this one had run its course. She wanted to end it. She wanted to move on. Bobby Hernandez didn't accept this. According to prosecutors who would later build a case against him, Bobby had made a chilling threat. A threat that, at the time, might have seemed like the desperate words of a scorned partner. Words said in anger. Words she probably hoped he didn't mean. "If you ever break up with me," he had told her, "I will take Julian. You'll never see him again." It's the kind of threat that parents caught in custody disputes hear sometimes. The kind that sends a chill down your spine but that you convince yourself is just talk. Just rage. Just hurt feelings transformed into ugly words. But Bobby Hernandez wasn't just talking. August 28, 2002. Early morning. Julian's mother has trusted Bobby to watch their son. Perhaps she has work. Perhaps she has errands. The specifics don't matter. What matters is that she has to leave Julian in his father's care, and despite the threat, despite the tension, she has to trust that Bobby will do the right thing. Parents make these calculations every day during custody arrangements. You weigh the risks. You remember that he's still the father. You tell yourself he would never actually hurt his own child. She leaves for the day. Julian stays with Bobby. Hours pass. The Alabama sun climbs higher in the sky, beating down mercilessly. The afternoon stretches out. And when Julian's mother returns home, expecting to find her son playing, watching TV, or coloring at the kitchen table, she finds something else instead. A note. Her hands shake as she reads it. The words confirm her deepest fear. The threat Bobby made wasn't just angry talk. It was a promise. Bobby has taken Julian. They're gone. Panic doesn't adequately describe what happens next. Panic is too small a word for the tsunami of fear, rage, and helplessness that crashes over a parent when they realize their child has been taken. She calls the police. Her voice is probably shaking. She's probably crying. She's trying to explain, "My ex took my son, he threatened to do this, I need help now, right now, every second matters." The Vestavia Hills Police Department responds. Officers arrive at the scene. They read the note. They take her statement. They begin to piece together what has happened. This is a parental abduction. Non-custodial parent kidnapping. In the world of missing children cases, parental abductions are the most common, and often the most complicated. Unlike stranger abductions, where the perpetrator is usually trying to harm the child, parental abductions typically involve a parent who loves the child but refuses to share custody. That doesn't make them any less devastating for the parent left behind. That doesn't make them any less illegal. Officers issue a bolo, "Be on the lookout," for Bobby Hernandez and 5-year-old Julian. They gather information. What was Bobby driving? What was he wearing? Where might he go? Does he have family in other states? Does he have money? Resources? But Bobby has a head start. Hours. Maybe the better part of a day. And in cases like this, every hour is critical. Every hour is a mile marker on a road leading away from home. By nightfall on August 28, 2002, Julian Hernandez was gone. Somewhere out there, in the vast expanse of America, a father and son are on the run. And a mother sits in her home, alone, probably staring at her son's empty bedroom, wondering if she'll ever see him again. The Vestavia Hills Police Department launches a full investigation. Missing child cases receive immediate priority, even parental abductions. Because the hard truth is this: while most parents who abduct their children don't physically harm them, the psychological damage is immense. And there's always the possibility that a parent desperate enough to kidnap might make dangerous decisions. Detective units pore over Bobby Hernandez's life. They interview friends, family members, former coworkers. They pull financial records, checking for credit card transactions, ATM withdrawals, anything that might create a trail. They check phone records, looking for calls that might reveal where Bobby is heading. They issue alerts to law enforcement agencies across Alabama and neighboring states. Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi. They contact the FBI, because parental kidnapping across state lines is a federal crime. This is now more than a local case, it's an interstate manhunt. Julian's picture goes out to the media. Local news stations run his photo, a 5-year-old boy with dark hair and innocent eyes, wearing whatever he was dressed in when he disappeared. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children adds him to their database. His case number is logged. His face joins thousands of others in that heartbreaking archive of children who vanished. Tips start coming in. This is the double-edged sword of missing persons investigations. The public wants to help. People call when they think they've seen the child. A boy matching Julian's description at a gas station in Tennessee. A father and son at a motel in Georgia. Someone who looks like Bobby Hernandez buying food at a convenience store in Florida. Every tip must be investigated. Every tip sends officers racing to a new location, hoping this is the one. This is the lead that brings Julian home. But each one turns out to be a false alarm. A different child. A different man. A case of mistaken identity born from good intentions. Days turn into weeks. It's important to understand the limitations investigators faced in 2002. This was before the smartphone era. Before social media made it nearly impossible to truly disappear. Before GPS tracking and facial recognition software and the digital surveillance state that we now take for granted. In 2002, if you wanted to disappear, if you were careful and lucky and determined, you actually could. Bobby Hernandez couldn't erase his trail completely, no one can, but he could make it very difficult to follow. He could use cash instead of credit cards. He could avoid security cameras. He could create new identities for himself and his son without the biometric verification and cross-checking databases that make that much harder today. The Amber Alert system existed in 2002, but it was still relatively new, having been created only in 1996. It wasn't yet the nationwide network it would become. And Amber Alerts are typically used for stranger abductions where the child is in immediate danger, not parental kidnappings where the assumption is that the parent, however wrong their actions, doesn't intend to harm the child. So the investigators are working with old-school police work. Shoe leather. Interviews. Paper trails. They're searching for needles in haystacks, and the haystack is the entire United States. Weeks turn into months. This is where most missing persons stories enter a terrible limbo. The initial surge of urgency fades. New cases demand attention. Officer assignments change. Budget constraints mean that open investigations with no new leads can't receive constant active work. This doesn't mean the police give up. Julian's case remains open. His file sits in the department. If new information comes in, it will be investigated. But without fresh leads, without new evidence, there's nowhere for the investigation to go. Julian's mother doesn't accept this. She can't. How do you go on with your life when your 5-year-old son is somewhere out there, missing? How do you work, sleep, laugh, exist, when every moment of every day you're wondering, is he safe? Is he scared? Does he remember me? Is he even alive? She visits the police department regularly. Weekly, then monthly, then whenever she can bear it. She asks the same questions. Any news? Any leads? Anything at all? The answer is always the same. We're doing everything we can. But everything we can isn't bringing Julian home. By the end of 2002, Julian Hernandez has been missing for 4 months. By the end of 2003, a full year had passed. Then 2 years. Then 5. The case is cold. Julian is one of hundreds of thousands of missing persons in America, a statistic, a file, a face on a poster that becomes faded and outdated because the child in the picture is aging and no one knows what he looks like anymore. Most people, if they're honest, would give up hope. Most people would begin the terrible process of grieving, of accepting that their child might never come home. That they might never know what happened. But Julian's mother doesn't give up. 13 years is a long time. It's long enough for a child to grow from kindergarten to high school graduation. It's long enough for the world to change completely. In the 13 years between 2002 and 2015, America went from the aftermath of 9/11 to the election of its first black president. Cell phones evolved from flip phones to smartphones. Social media exploded. The internet transformed from dial-up to high-speed in every home. The world moved on. Life moved on. But for Julian's mother, time stopped on August 28, 2002. She keeps his room the way it was. His toys, his clothes, his bed, everything waiting for a 5-year-old boy who is aging somewhere beyond her reach. She celebrates his birthday every year, alone, marking another year of his life that she isn't part of. She prays. She goes to church. She asks God for what seems impossible. Please bring my son back. Please keep him safe. Please let him remember me. Friends and family try to help. They tell her she needs to move on. Not to forget, never to forget, but to live. To accept that Julian might never come home. To find some way to exist with this enormous, unbearable loss. But a mother's love doesn't work that way. A mother's love doesn't accept. Doesn't move on. Doesn't stop hoping, even when hope seems foolish. She keeps searching. She watches news stories about found children with desperate hunger. She follows every development in missing persons cases. She wonders if the next phone call, the next knock on the door, will be the one that changes everything. Years pass. Julian would be 10. 13. 15. She imagines what he might look like. Is he tall? Does he still have that same smile? Would she recognize him if she passed him on the street? The ripples of Julian's disappearance spread through the entire family. Extended family members feel the loss, aunts, uncles, cousins who never got to watch Julian grow up. Who never got to know the person he would become. Julian's mother carries guilt that no one can fully lift. Could she have prevented this? Should she have seen the warning signs more clearly? Should she have taken Bobby's threat more seriously? These are the questions that haunt parents in these situations. The what-ifs that eat away at you in the quiet moments. The guilt that is entirely undeserved but absolutely inescapable. She carries another burden too, anger. Rage at Bobby Hernandez for what he's done. For the years he's stolen. For the childhood she'll never get back. For the mother-son bond that should have been forming during all these critical years. But underneath the anger is something even more painful, longing. Just the simple, desperate desire to see her son. To hold him. To tell him she never stopped looking. To tell him she loves him. 2002 becomes 2005. The Iraq War dominates headlines. Hurricane Katrina devastates New Orleans. Julian would be 8 years old. 2005 becomes 2010. The recession hits. The world recovers. Social media becomes ubiquitous. Julian would be 13. 2010 becomes 2015. Smartphones are everywhere. The internet connects everyone. Finding people has never been easier. And yet Julian remains lost. The case is so cold it's practically frozen. The original investigators have moved on to other jobs, other departments, and retirement. New officers in Vestavia Hills know about the Julian Hernandez case. It's part of the department's history, but most of them weren't even working there when it happened. The likelihood of resolution seems to decrease with every passing year. Statistically, the longer a person is missing, the less likely they are to be found alive. After 13 years, most people would have given up hope entirely. But Julian's mother hasn't given up. She can't. And she's about to discover that sometimes, hope is rewarded in the most unexpected ways. While Julian's mother searches and grieves in Alabama, Julian is living an entirely different life 700 miles north in Cleveland, Ohio. But he's not Julian anymore. He doesn't know he ever was. Bobby Hernandez has done what many parental abductors do. He's created a new identity. For himself. For his son. He's obtained false documents, a driver's license, a social security card. He's given himself a new name, Jonathan Mangina. And Julian? Julian becomes JJ. Think about what this means. Bobby Hernandez has to erase his son's entire past. Has to make sure 5-year-old Julian forgets Alabama. Forgets his mother. Forgets his old life. Young children are malleable, their memories can be shaped, rewritten, replaced. Bobby uses this to his advantage. Maybe he tells Julian that his mother didn't want him. Maybe he says she died. Maybe he just refuses to talk about her at all until Julian stops asking. We don't know exactly what story Bobby constructed, but we know the result. Julian grows up believing that Bobby is all he has. That their life in Cleveland, under false names, is normal. Is real. Cleveland, Ohio, becomes home. It's a working-class city in the Rust Belt, struggling with economic decline but still full of resilient, hard-working people. Bobby and Julian settle into a neighborhood. They blend in. They become ordinary. JJ, as everyone knows him, goes to school. He's a good student. Bright, engaged, curious. His teachers like him. He makes friends. He participates in class. He does homework. He's polite, well-behaved, normal in every way. Because here's the complicated truth about most parental abductions: the parent usually takes decent care of the child. This isn't a case of abuse or neglect in the traditional sense. Bobby Hernandez, for all his crimes, appears to have raised Julian well. Fed him. Clothed him. Made sure he got an education. Was present in his life. In fact, by all accounts, Bobby was a good father. Attentive. Loving. Involved. This is what makes these cases so psychologically complex. Bobby committed a terrible crime. He stole a child from his mother, but in his twisted logic, he probably believed he was doing the right thing. He probably told himself that Julian was better off with him. That he was protecting his son. That this was justified. Julian, growing up, has no reason to question any of this. This is the only father he remembers. This is the only life he knows. He doesn't know he's missing. Doesn't know someone is searching for him. Doesn't know his entire existence is built on a lie. Julian, JJ, moves through adolescence like any teenager. Middle school brings its own challenges and triumphs. High school arrives. He's popular enough. Has friends. Maybe plays sports or joins clubs. He's figuring out who he is, what he wants to be. He's American, though maybe he wonders about his family history sometimes. Bobby has to be vague about relatives, about Julian's past, about where they came from. Maybe Julian notices these gaps. Maybe he doesn't. Children whose parents are secretive often just accept it as normal. He dreams about his future. College. Career. Maybe a family of his own someday. He's a normal American teenager with normal dreams. But underneath all of this normalcy is a ticking time bomb. Because Julian is living under a false identity. His social security number isn't really his. His name isn't really his. His entire legal existence is fraudulent. And eventually, inevitably, that's going to become a problem. Julian is 18 years old and in his senior year of high school. He's at that exciting, terrifying threshold between childhood and adulthood. He's looking at colleges. Planning his future. Feeling that mix of excitement and anxiety that all high school seniors feel. He's worked hard. His grades are good. He's going to college. He's going to make something of himself. His father, the man he knows as his father, the man who has raised him, protected him, been there for every milestone, is proud of him. Julian starts the college application process. He fills out forms. Writes essays. Requests recommendation letters. And then comes the part that every American student has to do: provide your social security number. Julian enters the number he's been using his whole life. The number on his documents. The number that Bobby gave him. And the system rejects it. There's a problem. An error. The numbers don't match the name. Or the numbers are flagged in some way. Or something. Julian doesn't understand exactly what is wrong. He tries again. Same result. He's frustrated. Confused. Why isn't this working? He does what any student would do. He goes to his school guidance counselor for help. And with that simple decision, Julian's entire world is about to explode. November 2015. A guidance counselor's office in a Cleveland high school. Julian sits across the desk, probably thinking this is just another bureaucratic hassle. Another form to fill out, another box to check. College applications are stressful for everyone, right? This is just one more obstacle to overcome. The counselor starts working through the problem. She's probably dealt with social security number issues before, maybe transposed digits, maybe clerical errors from when the number was first issued. She pulls up various databases, trying to figure out what's causing the mismatch. She searches. And searches. And then searches in a database she probably didn't expect to need, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And there he is. Julian Hernandez. Abducted from Alabama in August 2002 at age 5. Missing for 13 years. Still listed as missing. Still being searched for. The counselor's blood probably runs cold. She's looking at this 18-year-old young man sitting across from her, polite, earnest, worried about college applications, and she's looking at a missing child poster from 13 years ago. The age progression photos match. The details align. This student she's been helping, this normal teenager, is a kidnapping victim. And he has no idea. What do you do with information like that? How do you process the fact that the student sitting in front of you has been missing for over a decade? That somewhere, a mother has been searching for him all this time? The counselor knows she has to contact authorities. This is too big, too serious, to handle any other way. But she also has to be careful. If Julian is with his abductor, and it seems clear that he is, contacting the wrong people could cause the perpetrator to run again. To take Julian and disappear even more thoroughly this time. She makes the call. And within hours, law enforcement descends on Cleveland. Before we go further, we need to talk about something extraordinary that happened in the weeks before the counselor's discovery. Something that gives us a rare window into Julian's state of mind during this crisis. In September 2015, about 2 months before the guidance counselor would make her discovery, someone posted on Reddit asking for advice. The post was later confirmed to be from Julian himself, though he was using an anonymous account. The post explained his situation. He'd discovered something was wrong with his social security number. He'd started investigating. And he'd found something that shattered his reality, evidence that he'd been taken from his mother. That his entire life was a lie. But here's what's remarkable about the post: Julian wasn't angry at his father. He wasn't demanding justice. He was asking how to handle the situation without getting his father in trouble. Think about that. An 18-year-old discovers he was kidnapped as a child, and his immediate concern is protecting his abductor. This tells us so much about the psychological complexity of parental abduction. Bobby Hernandez had raised Julian. Had been there for every skin knee, every school play, every milestone. Julian loved his father. And even upon discovering the truth, that love didn't just evaporate. The responses Julian received on Reddit were sympathetic but clear: he needed to contact authorities. What happened to him was a crime. His mother had been searching for him for 13 years. He deserved to know the truth. She deserved to find her son. But Julian was torn. And that conflict, between the father he loved and the mother he couldn't remember, between the life he knew and the truth he'd uncovered, was about to become even more complicated. When the guidance counselor contacts authorities, multiple agencies get involved immediately. The Cleveland Police Department. The FBI, because this is an interstate kidnapping case. The Vestavia Hills Police Department in Alabama, whose cold case is suddenly hot again after 13 years. They have to move carefully. Bobby Hernandez is presumably still with Julian. If Bobby realizes the authorities are closing in, he could run again. Could take Julian and disappear more thoroughly this time. Or worse, if he's desperate enough, he could do something drastic. Investigators verify the identity match. They compare photographs, the 5-year-old Julian from 2002 to the 18-year-old JJ in Cleveland. They run DNA analysis if possible. They confirm that yes, this is definitely Julian Hernandez who was reported missing 13 years ago. They make a decision: they need to arrest Bobby Hernandez. They need to secure Julian. And they need to do it quickly, before Bobby realizes what's happening. November 2015. Plainclothes officers locate Bobby Hernandez. The moment must be surreal for everyone involved. This man has been living a normal life for 13 years. Working. Paying bills. Raising his son. And now, officers are approaching him with handcuffs. Bobby Hernandez, you're under arrest for kidnapping and interference with custody. Does Bobby resist? Does he try to run? Does he immediately ask about Julian? We don't know all the details of the arrest, but we know the outcome. Bobby Hernandez is taken into custody. His 13-year-old crime has finally caught up with him. And Julian, JJ, has to face the truth that his entire life has been built on a lie. Imagine being 18 years old and having everything you thought you knew about yourself revealed as fiction. Your name isn't your name. Your father is a kidnapper. Your mother, whom you don't remember, has been searching for you for 13 years. Your social security number is fake. Your identity is fake. Your entire childhood was a crime scene. How do you process that? How do you reconcile the father you love with the fact that he's a criminal who stole you from your mother? How do you grieve for a childhood that was both real, in that you lived it, and false, in that it should never have happened? Julian's reaction is remarkably measured, all things considered. He's shocked, certainly. Confused. Angry, perhaps. But also, and this is crucial, still protective of Bobby. Because here's what people outside these situations don't always understand: Bobby Hernandez was the only parent Julian had known for 13 years. He was there for every important moment. He was present. He was, by all accounts, a good father in every way except the most fundamental: he had no right to be raising Julian at all. This creates a psychological bind. Julian can intellectually understand that what Bobby did was wrong. That he was stolen from his mother. That a crime was committed. But emotionally, this is still his dad. In Vestavia Hills, Alabama, a phone rings. Julian's mother answers. And she hears words she's been waiting 13 years to hear. "We've found your son. Julian is alive. He's in Cleveland, Ohio." The call probably comes from law enforcement, maybe the FBI agent assigned to the case, maybe someone from the local police department. They have to deliver this news carefully. After 13 years of grief and uncertainty, this is overwhelming news. Julian's mother's reaction, we can only imagine. Tears. Shock. Disbelief. Joy is so intense it's almost painful. Relief that her son is alive. Grief for 13 years of missed time. Anger at Bobby for what he's done. Gratitude to the investigators who never gave up. Fear about what happens next. Because finding Julian doesn't mean everything is magically fixed. He doesn't remember her. He's lived an entire life without her. He loves Bobby, the man who kidnapped him. The reunion isn't going to be simple or easy. But he's alive. After 13 years of not knowing, she finally knows, her son is alive. Arrangements begin immediately. Julian will need to be told everything. His mother will travel to Cleveland, or Julian will travel to Alabama. Law enforcement will facilitate a reunion. Therapists will be involved to help both mother and son navigate this impossible situation. The case of Julian Hernandez, missing since August 28, 2002, is officially solved. After 13 years and 3 months, he has been found. But in many ways, the hardest part is just beginning. Julian sits in a room, probably with social workers, counselors, maybe FBI agents, and learns the story of his own life. The real story. Your name is Julian Hernandez. You were born in Alabama. You lived there until you were 5 years old. You had a mother who loved you very much. And on August 28, 2002, your father took you. He left her a note and disappeared with you across state lines. He gave you a fake social security number. He changed your name. He created a false identity for both of you. Your mother never stopped looking for you. She reported you missing immediately. The police searched. The FBI searched. For 13 years, you were listed as a missing child. Your face was on posters. Your case was in the database of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And all that time, you were in Cleveland, Ohio, living a normal life, having no idea that you were missing. Julian listens. Processes. Tries to reconcile this information with everything he thought he knew. He probably has questions. So many questions. Did my mother really want me? Yes, absolutely. She never stopped searching. Why did my father take me? That's complicated. He was supposed to have visitation, but when your parents broke up, he threatened to take you, and then he did. Was I in danger? Not in the traditional sense. Your father took care of you. But he had no legal right to keep you from your mother. What happens now? That's what we're all trying to figure out. Bobby Hernandez faces serious charges. In Ohio, he's charged with tampering with records, because he created false identity documents for himself and Julian. In Alabama, he faces kidnapping and interference with custody charges. These are federal crimes. Interstate kidnapping carries serious prison time. Bobby Hernandez is looking at years behind bars. But there's a complication. Julian himself doesn't want his father to go to prison. Remember, Julian loves Bobby. Despite everything, despite the lies and the crime and the 13 years stolen from his mother, Bobby is still the man who raised him. The father who was there for him. The parent he knows. Julian begins preparing a statement. He wants to tell the court, the judge, the world, I forgive my father. Please show him leniency. This request will complicate the legal proceedings immensely. Victim impact statements usually describe harm and trauma. Julian's statement will do the opposite, it will ask for mercy. Meanwhile, preparations are being made for Julian to meet his mother. The mother he doesn't remember. The mother who never stopped searching. This isn't going to be like a movie. This isn't going to be an uncomplicated tearful embrace where everything instantly becomes okay. Reunions in these cases are messy, complicated, full of joy and grief and awkwardness all tangled together. Julian's mother is traveling to Cleveland, or arrangements are made to bring Julian to Alabama. The exact logistics aren't public. She's probably terrified. Excited. Nervous. She's thought about this moment for 13 years, but now that it's here, she doesn't know what to expect. What do you say to the 5-year-old son you lost when he's now 18? How do you bridge 13 years of absence? How do you tell him you love him when he doesn't remember you? And Julian, he's preparing too. He's looking at photos of his mother. Learning about his early childhood. Trying to remember anything from those first 5 years of his life. Maybe there are flashes of memory. Maybe there's nothing. The brain is strange that way. Early childhood memories can be completely erased, especially when there's been deliberate effort to suppress them. Counselors are involved, helping both mother and son prepare for what will be an intensely emotional meeting. The location isn't public. Maybe it's at a police station. Maybe it's at a counselor's office. Maybe it's somewhere neutral, carefully chosen to make this easier. Julian's mother arrives first. She's probably been up all night. Hasn't been able to eat. Her hands are shaking. She's about to see the son she lost when he was 5 years old. He's 18 now. A young man. A stranger who is also her child. The door opens. Julian walks in. For a moment, they just look at each other. She sees traces of the 5-year-old she remembers in this tall teenager's face. The eyes are the same. Something about the shape of his face. But he's so grown up. So much time has passed. Julian sees a woman he doesn't remember. His mother. The person who gave birth to him, who raised him for 5 years, who searched for him for 13 more. He knows intellectually that this is his mother. But emotionally, she's a stranger. And then she moves toward him. Maybe she's crying. She's probably crying. And she embraces him. Julian, she says. Maybe that's all she can say. Just his name. His real name. Julian. How does Julian respond? We don't know all the details. But accounts suggest he's polite, perhaps even warm. But there's also distance. How could there not be? You can't manufacture 13 years of relationship in a single meeting. They talk. She tells him about his early childhood. Stories he doesn't remember. She shows him photos, Julian as a baby, as a toddler, as a 4-year-old. His birthday parties. Holidays. Normal family moments from a life he doesn't remember living. She tells him about the search. About never giving up. About visiting the police station over and over. About praying every night for his safe return. About marking every birthday, every holiday, every milestone, wondering where he was and if he was okay. And maybe, just maybe, something in Julian shifts. Maybe he begins to understand the magnitude of what was taken from both of them. Not just his childhood with her, but her experience of raising him. The teenage years she missed. The graduations, the achievements, the everyday moments. 13 years of mother-son relationship that can never be recovered. What makes Julian's case particularly poignant is his public stance toward his father. As the legal proceedings move forward, Julian makes clear that he forgives Bobby Hernandez. That despite everything, he doesn't want vengeance. In April 2016, at Bobby's sentencing hearing, Julian provided a victim impact statement. But it's not the kind of statement the court usually hears. Standing before the judge, this young man, now 19 years old, speaks about the father who kidnapped him with remarkable compassion. Even if other people can't, Julian says, I forgive him. He asks the judge not to send Bobby to prison. He describes the years with his father as the only time I've ever truly felt at home and at peace. These words are simultaneously touching and heartbreaking. Touching because they show Julian's capacity for forgiveness and love. Heartbreaking because they reveal how completely Bobby succeeded in erasing Julian's memory of his mother and their life in Alabama. Julian tells the court he doesn't want to see his father suffer. That Bobby was a good father to him. That he's grateful for the upbringing he received. But the prosecutors present a different picture. They read a statement from Julian's mother, a statement delivered through her attorney, Gloria Allred, because the pain is too great for her to speak herself. During my darkest moments, I considered suicide, the statement reads. I wanted to die. She describes 13 years of agony. Of waking up every day wondering if her son was alive. Of never being able to move on. Of searching endlessly, desperately, hopelessly. I never stopped searching, she tells the court. These two statements, Julian's and his mother's, capture the tragic complexity of parental abduction. Both are true. Both are valid. Julian genuinely had a good childhood with Bobby. And Julian's mother genuinely experienced 13 years of torture. Bobby Hernandez stole his son's childhood from one parent while providing a childhood to that same son. He was both a loving father and a kidnapper. Both things are true simultaneously. The judge must weigh all of this. The crime is serious: kidnapping, creating false identities, keeping a child from his mother for 13 years. These are not minor offenses. But the victim himself is asking for leniency. Julian doesn't want his father imprisoned. In the end, Bobby Hernandez is sentenced to 4 years in prison. 4 years for 13 years of kidnapping. Some might say it's too lenient. Others might argue that given Julian's wishes, it's appropriate. Bobby is also charged in Alabama, where the original kidnapping occurred. The legal proceedings are complicated, involving multiple jurisdictions. But the Ohio sentence stands: 4 years. Bobby Hernandez will serve his time. And when he gets out, what then? Will he have a relationship with Julian? Will Julian's mother allow contact? Can there be any kind of normal family dynamic after something like this? These are questions without easy answers. While Bobby serves his sentence, Julian begins the difficult work of building a relationship with his mother. It's not easy. It's not instant. You can't force 13 years of bonding to happen overnight. They spend time together. They talk on the phone. They visit. She learns about who he is now, his interests, his goals, his personality. He learns about her, who she is, what she's been through, what she lost. She meets his friends from Cleveland. He meets her family in Alabama, extended family he doesn't remember, people who watched him disappear as a 5-year-old. There are probably awkward moments. Probably painful conversations. Probably times when Julian wishes he could have both his parents without the trauma, the crime, the impossibility of it all. But there's also hope. Because unlike so many missing persons cases, Julian's ended with a reunion. His mother got to see him alive. Got to hold him again. Got answers after 13 years of questions. It's not the outcome she would have chosen to never lose him in the first place. But given that he was taken, this is the best possible resolution. Throughout this ordeal, Julian has asked repeatedly for privacy. He's made limited public statements. He doesn't want to be defined by this case. Doesn't want to be the kid who was kidnapped for the rest of his life. This is understandable. Julian has had his entire identity upended. His privacy has been invaded. His life has become a news story, a true crime case, a cautionary tale. He just wants to be normal. To go to college. To build his life. To figure out who he is without the weight of this story constantly on his shoulders. So the details of his ongoing relationship with his mother, his feelings about his father's incarceration, his day-to-day life, these remain private. As they should be. What we know is this: Julian is alive. He's reunited with his mother. He's pursuing his education. He's building a future. And after 13 years of being missing, that's something worth celebrating. Julian's case highlights several important issues about missing persons investigations and parental abductions. First, it shows how difficult it is to find someone who doesn't know they're missing. Julian wasn't hiding from authorities, he was living a normal life under a false identity. He went to school every day. He was visible. But because he didn't know he was kidnapped, he had no reason to reach out for help. Second, it demonstrates the importance of databases like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. If Julian's case hadn't been entered into that database, his social security number issue might have been resolved differently. The guidance counselor might never have made the connection. Julian might have received a corrected social security number without ever learning the truth. Third, it reveals the psychological complexity of parental abduction. These aren't stranger abduction cases where the child is being harmed. Often, the abducting parent genuinely loves the child and provides adequate care. But the crime isn't about physical harm, it's about the devastation inflicted on the left-behind parent and the psychological manipulation of the child. Bobby Hernandez convinced Julian that their life together was normal and legitimate. He erased Julian's memory of his mother. He taught Julian to answer to a false name. He created an entire false reality. And Julian, taken at such a young age, had no way to know this wasn't normal. Julian's public forgiveness of his father fascinates psychologists and observers of the case. How can someone forgive the person who kidnapped them? But the answer is rooted in attachment theory. Julian bonded with Bobby during critical developmental years. Bobby was his primary caregiver from age 5 to 18. That's the entire period of childhood and adolescence. Bobby wasn't just Julian's kidnapper, he was also, functionally, Julian's parent. Children form attachments to their caregivers even in abusive situations. It's a survival mechanism. Julian's situation wasn't abusive in the traditional sense, Bobby apparently treated him well, but it was built on a lie. And yet, Julian's brain couldn't help but form a strong bond with the person who raised him. This doesn't mean Julian's forgiveness is wrong or that he's been brainwashed. It means he's capable of holding two truths simultaneously: Bobby committed a terrible crime, and Bobby was also a good father to him. Both can be true. Julian's mother, understandably, probably struggles with this. How does she feel knowing that her son loves the man who stole him from her? How does she cope with Julian's public statements of forgiveness and his request for leniency? These are questions that have no easy answers. This is the lasting trauma of parental abduction, not just the years of separation, but the complicated emotional aftermath that can never be fully resolved. Bobby Hernandez served his 4-year sentence in Ohio. He was released from prison in 2019. His relationship with Julian after his release isn't public information. Julian has maintained his privacy, but it's likely complicated at best. Bobby would now be in his 50s or 60s. He lives with the consequences of his choice to kidnap his son. He spent 4 years in prison. He has a felony record. His relationship with Julian, whatever form it takes, will forever be shaped by what he did. Julian's mother continues to live in Alabama. She finally has answers after 13 years of searching. She has some relationship with Julian, though the details are private. She's had to accept that the 5-year-old she lost is gone, not dead, but transformed into an adult she doesn't fully know. She's building a relationship with the 18, 19, 20-year-old Julian rather than recovering the child she lost. And Julian? He would now be in his late 20s. He's presumably completed college, the very thing he was trying to do when his true identity was discovered. He's building a career. Maybe he has relationships, maybe even a family of his own. He's living his life with the knowledge of where he came from, who he is, and the complicated history that shaped him. He's asked for privacy, and that request should be honored. He deserves to be more than this story. More than a case study. More than a true crime narrative. He deserves to just be Julian. Whoever Julian chooses to be. We should pause to acknowledge the unsung hero of this story, the high school guidance counselor who discovered the truth. She could have dismissed the Social Security number issue as a bureaucratic error. She could have told Julian to contact the Social Security office and left it at that. She could have searched only the most obvious databases and given up when she didn't find answers quickly. But she kept searching. She was thorough. And when she found Julian in the missing persons database, she knew immediately that she had to contact authorities. Her diligence reunited a mother and son. Her refusal to accept a simple explanation led to solving a 13-year-old case. Her actions brought closure to a family that had been living in limbo for over a decade. Guidance counselors don't often make headlines. They're behind-the-scenes workers in schools, helping students navigate college applications and career planning and personal crises. But this guidance counselor changed lives. She's a reminder that ordinary people doing their jobs with care and attention can have extraordinary impacts. Julian's case sparked renewed conversation about parental abduction. According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, family abductions account for a significant percentage of missing children cases. In many cases, these children are found relatively quickly. But in some, like Julian's, the abducting parent successfully creates a new life for years or even decades. The case raised questions. Should penalties for parental abduction be harsher? Should there be better systems for verifying identity documents? Should Social Security numbers be cross-checked more regularly against missing persons databases? It also highlighted the need for better support systems for families dealing with parental abduction. Julian's mother searched for 13 years without resolution. What resources are available for parents in these situations? What about therapy for the children who were eventually found and reunited? These are ongoing conversations in law enforcement and social work communities. Julian's case doesn't provide all the answers, but it asks important questions. Despite the trauma, despite the complexity, despite the impossibility of fully recovering what was lost, Julian's story carries a message of hope. For 13 years, his mother didn't know if her son was alive or dead. For 13 years, she lived with the worst kind of uncertainty. And then, in the most unexpected way, she got answers. She got to see him. She got to start building a relationship with the adult he'd become. It's not the outcome she would have chosen. She would have chosen to never lose those 13 years. But given that she did lose them, this is as close to a happy ending as parental abduction cases can have. For other families with missing loved ones, Julian's story is a reminder. Sometimes, missing persons are found. Sometimes, decades later, the impossible happens. Sometimes, hope is rewarded. Not always. The painful truth is that many missing persons are never found. Many families never get closure. But Julian's case proves that sometimes, just sometimes, the miracle happens. Julian is now living his life with full knowledge of his history. He knows where he came from. He knows what happened to him. He knows about the mother who searched and the father who took him. What he does with that knowledge is up to him. He can choose how much contact to have with each parent. He can choose whether to speak publicly about his experience. He can choose whether this story defines him or whether he defines himself independently of it. He's building a life. A real life, not the false one Bobby constructed. A life with his real name, his real identity, his real history, however complicated that history may be. And ultimately, that's what this story is about. Not just the abduction. Not just the search. Not just the reunion. But about a young man reclaiming his identity and his future. About a mother who never gave up. About the possibility of healing, even when the wounds are deep and the scars permanent. Julian Hernandez was missing for 13 years. But he was found. And now he's living. Really living. As himself. August 28, 2002. A 5-year-old boy disappeared from Vestavia Hills, Alabama. His mother began a search that would consume 13 years of her life. Police pursued hundreds of leads that went nowhere. The case went cold. November 2015. A high school senior tried to apply to college and discovered that his entire life was built on a lie. A guidance counselor made a connection that law enforcement had been unable to make for over a decade. And a cold case became a miracle. This is what we do here at the Found Files. We don't just tell you about missing persons cases. We don't just recite the facts and move on. We dive deep. We show you the complexity, the humanity, the impossible emotions that these cases create. Julian Hernandez's story reminds us that missing persons cases don't always end in tragedy. That sometimes, the impossible happens. That a mother's hope, sustained for 13 years, can be rewarded. That a guidance counselor's diligence can change everything. That even in the midst of crime and trauma, people can find forgiveness, healing, and hope. But it also reminds us that resolution doesn't mean everything is fixed. Julian will carry this experience for the rest of his life. His mother will never get back those 13 years. The relationship they're building can never replace the one that was stolen. Bobby Hernandez's crime has permanent consequences for everyone involved. Life is complicated. People are complicated. And missing persons cases, especially parental abductions, are some of the most complicated stories we tell. If Julian's story moved you, hit that like button. If you believe in hope even when the odds seem impossible, subscribe to the Found Files. We bring you one detailed, deeply researched case every week. Cases where people were lost and then found. Cases that prove miracles can happen. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think. Should Bobby Hernandez's sentence have been longer? Was Julian's forgiveness justified? How do you build a relationship with someone you don't remember? These are hard questions, and we want to hear your thoughts. And if you or someone you know has a missing loved one, don't give up. Keep searching. Keep hoping. Keep their faces out there. Because Julian's case proves that even after 13 years, even when everyone else has moved on, even when hope seems foolish, sometimes, just sometimes, missing persons come home. This has been the Found Files. I'm your host, and I'll see you next week with another incredible story of loss, search, and reunion. Until then, stay safe. Keep hope alive. And never forget, missing doesn't always mean gone forever.